Good afternoon. Welcome. On behalf of our sponsors, the Faculty of Health, York Federation of Students, York University Black Students Alliance, Sport and Recreation, School of Kinesiology and Health Science, Stong and Bethune Colleges, and Kinesiology and Health Science Students Organization, I would like to welcome all of you to this exciting event. My name is Yuka Nakamura, and I will be the moderator for this afternoon. I would like to first introduce Morgan Campbell of All Balls Don't Bounce, who will make some opening remarks. Morgan Campbell is a sports writer and social critic whose work deftly blends sports writing and social commentary. Morgan, together with Dwayne Watson, a music industry executive turned freelance sports writer, and Will Strickland, former professional basketball player and one of the world's foremost authorities on hip-hop, founded All Balls Don't Bounce to explore the social issues that form and inform the sports world. Please welcome Morgan Campbell.
How we doing, guys? I ran up here for a reason. I've been told to make this brief because I know our friends from CBC are kind of pressed for time. Just wanted, again, to thank all you guys for coming out. Thank each of the student groups and professors that helped make this happen. Big shout out to my partners in All Balls Don't Bounce, Will and Dwayne. And if you want to know more about us, check out our website, allballsdon'tbounce.com. Come check us out on Facebook. We've got a group there. We've got a weekly podcast that we're actually going to record with these two gentlemen right here, right after we leave here. And if you haven't heard our podcast, it's about time you did. But beyond that, just want to recognize a few people in the place tonight. What's up, DJ? I see a lot of the track team from York University here, which is cool, which means the word got out. My man Tyrone Halstead, who I coached. You guys might recognize him from the side of the bus, but I coached him, brought him in, saved him from the badminton team, as a matter of fact. And I hesitate to shout out a lot of individuals because I know I'm going to miss somebody. Real quick, Perdita Felician's in the house. She came out, and this is maybe the most decorated track and field athlete in this country's history. So she's here. Give her a hand. Now, as far as this event is concerned, I have to give a big shout out to a guy who is probably the most successful athlete before Tyrone and Dante came along at this institution. Football star, track star, former Toronto Argonaut, former Edmonton Eskimo, was really instrumental in kind of introducing me to the faculty members that helped make this event possible. Andre Action Batson, if you're in the house, I know you are because I talked to you. Wave to the people. Wave again, Andre, they didn't see you. All right. And my last biggest tip of the cap goes to Yuka Nakamura, because trust me, she has been hustling on this for months, probably since September, running around everywhere making this happen. So a big shout out to Yuka Nakamura. And I think that's all the housekeeping. Again, if you want to know more about All Balls Don't Bounce, because we do this, try to do this once a quarter, have an event, that explores not only sports, but social issues. Once a quarter, if you guys want to find out more about us, allballsdon'tbounce.com. You can email us, allballsdon'tbounce@gmail.com. By all means, check out the weekly podcast. But that's enough about us, because you didn't come here to hear me speak. You came to hear these two, so let Yuka introduce them.
The 200-meter men's final at the 1968 Olympics in Mexico City probably began like any other race. 8 men took their starting positions, and with the sound of the pistol, the runners exploded out of the starting block, each one aiming to be the man who would cross the finish line first. The race ended in less than 20 seconds. Tommy Smith, Peter Norman, and John Carlos finished first, second, and third respectively, becoming the fastest men on Earth. The event surely reflected the epitome of the Olympics: faster, higher, stronger. But as thrilling as the race was, and as exceptional as the achievements were of these 3 runners, it was but one competition among many at the Games. Or was it? As Tommy Smith and John Carlos made their way to the podium for the medal ceremony, it became clear that it was not just another race, and these were not ordinary athletes. These athletes' peaceful and powerful protests said otherwise. Indeed, their actions highlight how politics frequently emerge within the Olympic Games and sport in general. Here to speak to this iconic moment and the intersection of sport and politics are Dr. John Carlos and award-winning journalist and co-author of Dr. Carlos' recent autobiography, Dave Zirin.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. I love Canada, first of all. Every time I come here, the first thing I think is, why don't I live here? I'm serious. I know Canada has its problems, and every time someone from the U.S. says that, there's always people from Canada be like, it's no paradise up here, what have you. And I respect that, and I understand that. I'm not trying to turn it into some sort of Shangri-La. But it is true, I think, what Malcolm X said when he said that the American South begins at the Canadian border. I mean, you just feel a little bit differently when you cross the line. So, first of all, just a question for you guys here. How many people here consider yourselves like die-hard sports fans, like psychotic sports fans? Like all y'all care about is sports? How many people consider yourselves like you're kind of sports fans? Like you think about it, you know, you follow it casually, okay? And how many people here would rather have their head shaved with a cheese grater than hear somebody talk about sports? Okay, very good. So I want this, what's your name, sir? Andre. See, I want today hopefully to speak to psychotic sports fans, regular sports fans, and Andre. If it can speak to you all today, damn. Thank you. Thank you for that. Would anyone else like to share? No, I'll tell you, I grew up just a psychotic sports fan. I played every sport on earth except for golf, which is not a sport. No, anything that you can gain weight or smoke cigarettes while doing is not a sport. That's my own personal philosophy. And to me, though, the ultimate sport, the sport that combines mind and body to the ultimate degree is track and field. And I believe that very strongly. And strictly from a sports perspective, it was an honor to write the John Carlos story because I knew I was writing a book with somebody who could have been described very accurately in the 1960s as the baddest man on the planet when it comes to running track and field. I mean, when you can run 100 yards in 8.8 seconds, track team, is that good? That's pretty good. 200 meters in 19.7, is that good? And with all due respect to the 21st century athlete, this was before you had the field that was made out of polyurethane, 21st century rubber, NASA created your shoes and all the rest of it. I mean, goodness gracious, I think they made John run in cowboy boots. That's how long ago it was. So it makes the times all the more amazing. But the reason why we wrote this book, of course, is that this moment transcends sports. And that's when we've been going around, hell, now I can say North America, talking about this book. We haven't just gone to bookstores, we haven't just gone to universities, but we have visited and spoken at and been welcomed at the Occupy sites around the United States. We've been spoken at Occupy Wall Street, Occupy Madison, Occupy Columbus, anywhere we go there. And it's been remarkable to go there and see people who are out there on a limb trying to fight for a more just society. People born decades after John Carlos and Tommy Smith and Peter Norman did what they did. And to see them want to hear what John Carlos has to say. To see them still absolutely electrified by that moment in 1968. And it's easy to understand why they would be electrified. I call this the most beautiful, most inappropriate moment in sports history. And it's true, because if you think about it, we are taught that there is no higher plateau than the Olympic Games. And in the Olympic Games, there's no higher plateau than the medal stand. And what you have here are three people saying to the world, that's bullshit. There actually is a higher plateau. And it's about social justice and human rights. And that's what makes it so relevant, and that's also what makes it so threatening to people today. But while we're thrilled people still care about the moment, we want people to know about the movement. And the movement was called the Olympic Project for Human Rights. And it was part of something that happened in the 60s as part of the African American freedom struggle, which has been wiped out of history. And that's the fact that in the world of sports, which now we see as being this hyper-commercialized, brought to you by Nike Enterprise, in the 60s, the best athletes on earth considered themselves part of the struggle. The greatest basketball player, you could argue, was Bill Russell. He was part of the struggle. The greatest college basketball player, Lou Alcindor, later Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, he was part of the struggle. The greatest football player, Jim Brown, was part of the struggle. And the greatest, who was just the greatest, Muhammad Ali, he was part of the struggle. And it spread, of course, into women's sports as well, where people like Billie Jean King, Donna De Verona, Lacey O'Neal, they fought for social justice, they fought for women's rights in the world of sports. It was something that you did. You protested where you stood. And this has been wiped away from history. And what's been particularly wiped away is what John Carlos stood for, and that was something called the Olympic Project for Human Rights. It was more than a moment, it was a movement. They had 4 central demands, and the demands to me are beautiful and need to be said out loud. One, to restore it from its historical whitewash, but also because those demands were incredibly prescient. And as I say these demands, when they said these back in the late 60s, it was considered to be awful. It's like, how dare you raise these things? And so think about the things that they stood for back then. 1, disinvite South Africa and Rhodesia from the Olympic Games. These are apartheid countries, and they have no place being in what was supposed to be the site for the best in the world at athletics. Well, it's not in the best in the world if only a part of the population gets to take part. Disinvite South Africa and Rhodesia. 2, hire more African American coaches. At the time, there was 1 African American assistant coach on the entire U.S. track and field team. 3, restore Muhammad Ali's title. They called Muhammad Ali the warrior saint of the black athletes' revolt. Muhammad Ali is somebody who had his title taken away from him because of his opposition to the war in Vietnam. And 4, and this was the one that was dangerous, they wanted Avery Brundage to be fired as head of the International Olympic Committee. Avery Brundage was an open fascist, an open white supremacist, an open admirer of Adolf Hitler, and they said, you know what? This guy, who might be the most powerful person in the Olympic Games, he doesn't belong as the runner of the Olympic Games. It's inappropriate, it's wrong, get him out of here. So they had these demands, and their goal was to organize a boycott of all African American athletes from going to the '68 Olympics. They said, let's see how it goes if we're not there. What they said was, why should we run in Mexico City only to crawl home? Now, this is where things got a little difficult, because the boycott wasn't able to coalesce, and it didn't coalesce for 2 reasons. One of those reasons is a good reason, and that's the fact that in 1968, for the first time, South Africa and Rhodesia were then disinvited from the Olympic Games. But the second reason is something a little more complicated. It was that more and more people said to the people involved in the organizing, you know, I've trained my whole life for this one moment, for that 10 seconds on the track, that 20 seconds on the track, and I'm just not ready to give that up. So the boycott fell away, and at this point, John Carlos, Tommy Smith, others, they were faced with a choice. Do we not go to the Olympics anyway and say, we're just not going to go? And later, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar didn't go to the '68 Olympics. Or do they say, do we go there and represent our movement at the high level? And that's what they chose to do, and honestly, that's why we're here today. So they came up with a plan. John Carlos and Tommy Smith, before they ran this last race in the 200 meters, they said, okay, when we get on that medal stand, we are going to wear black gloves to showcase power to all the people. We're going to wear buttons that show to the Olympic Project for Human Rights. We're not going to wear shoes as a symbol of protest against poverty in the black community. John Carlos wore beads around his neck as a symbol of lynching in the United States and the history of violence against people of African descent. And they came up with this great idea. Of course, there was one thing they had to do first, right? What was that? Yeah, you better get on that medal stand, right? Otherwise, you bring all this stuff to the Olympic Games. It's not as good a story if they come in ninth. And it's like, damn, wasted all this stuff. Now, what John Carlos then did is what I would argue one of the most amazing feats of athletic pyrotechnics ever. I mean, people saw the race up here. Now, if you were watching it closely, what you would have seen is John Carlos get a lead. And then, yep, there it is right there. You see, you saw it. It's like, if you run 100 meters, 200 meters, where's your head always supposed to be, peoples? Straight ahead. You're looking at that finish line. John Carlos is going like this. Where's Tommy? Where's Tommy? At one point he goes, come on, Tommy, stop bullshitting. Tommy gets his kick, moves ahead. John's looking forward this way so much he doesn't see over the right shoulder Peter Norman. Australian runner crossed the tape right when John did. Peter got the silver. John got the bronze. Now they were ready to go to this medal stand and do their thing. Peter Norman asked for his own button that said Olympic Project for Human Rights, so history would record that he stood with them at this moment. But there was one more thing they had to worry about, and that was the idea that they could get up on that medal stand, someone could shoot them and kill them right there on the spot. Now, if that sounds crazy, that sounds far-fetched to you, think for a second about what had happened in 1968. This is October of 1968. Just a couple short months before that time, Martin Luther King, assassinated. Robert F. Kennedy, assassinated. Riots involving the police, a police riot outside the Democratic National Committee. And then just days before the start of the Olympics, hundreds, if not as many as 1,500 Mexican students and workers slaughtered in the streets by the Mexican government to make way for the Olympic Games. All of this stuff, John Carlos and Tommy Smith, they got up there on the medal stand. All of this stuff was in their minds. And it got to the point where Tommy said to John, he said, what happens if somebody takes a shot at us? And John said, and you know we're fast, so we'll do the best we can. And then they got up there, they raised their fists, anthem started, and as John, and believe me, when he said this to me, I was like, oh yeah, this is going in the book. He said, it got so quiet you could have heard a frog piss on cotton. That's how quiet it got there. And then the boos started. And then the debris started to be thrown at them. And then a journey of suffering took place over the course of decades. And it started that went out of their way to not tell the story I just told about what they were standing for, human rights, South Africa, Rhodesia, all the rest of it, and instead told a very different story. A story of these scary black militants. A story, as a young sports writer named Brent Musburger said, of black-skinned stormtroopers making a Nazi-like salute. And you think about the horrible irony of distorting their message like that, given that one of the things they were standing up against was Avery Brundage, who was an actual Nazi. And you could see why it hurts so much, and why that kind of invective hurts so much as they attempted to make their way in the world. They had suffered for a long time, but the thing that makes John so amazing, well, that's what's so easy. It's the opposite. It's the people in 68 who didn't act who have regrets today, not the people who did. And that's a remarkable life lesson, and that's, I think, gets to the final point, which is why people at these Occupy protests, why young people born decades after this moment still care about this moment and still care about John Carlos. And I think it's because when you look at that picture, the one thing you see is that this is somebody who cannot be broken. They couldn't break John Carlos, and that's what makes him so powerful a presence here today. I'm just reminded at this moment of September 21st, which was the night a gentleman named Troy Davis was executed in the state of Georgia. And I'll never forget, I was out in front of the Supreme Court that night. We were protesting, trying to keep Troy alive, and this young woman had tears running down her face. And she said, you know, sometimes I think the one thing this country just can't accept is the idea of a free black man. I think what makes this image so powerful is that you look at John Carlos, you look at Tommy Smith, you can think whatever you want, but one thing you have to think is that they are nothing at this moment, not free. And with that, I give you Dr. John Carlos.
okay back there? It's good. Well, first let me say it's an honor and a pleasure for me to be back here in Canada. Specifically more to be here at York University and see so many young people that look like me, 43 years ago. I started out pretty much just like you in terms of me trying to learn as much as I can. But let me tell you how my life got involved in activism. You know, I wasn't concerned about being no activism when I was a youngster. I liked to spin the bottle and let me catch that girl that I was looking at. You know, go to the parties, you know, and get real close, that kind of thing. That was my expectations as a youngster. But then I began to look at life for what it really was. We didn't have a TV back when I came through. We had a radio. That was our TV. That way I came with the slogan, see with your ears and hear with your eyes. Because that was our television, that radio. I remember one day I was in the house and I heard this guy come in talking about he wants to swim in the English Channel. I thought, well, that would be great. Why would it be great? Because I was a New York freestyle bathtub swimmer. I was the best swimmer in New York as a kid, from my estimation. But I never heard anybody challenging themselves or being challenged to do anything in the water. And here this guy talking about he wants to swim in the English Channel. Well, hey, Pop, what's the English Channel? And what is this guy going to get for swimming in the English Channel? Does he get money? Does he get reputation? Does he get a trophy? What does he get, Pop? My old man said, well, son, I don't really know, but I'll check it out. More than likely, he get all of those things. Hey, Pop, can you swim? Yes, son. Just like a rock, straight to the bottom. I knew I wouldn't get a whole bunch of help from my dad from that statement. But when he went to find out, a few weeks later, I heard them talk about the Olympic Games. Hey, Pop, what's the Olympic Games? They say it's the greatest sports spectacle in the world. He said, yes, son, that's when all the different countries get their best athletes to come together for athletic competition to see who's more physically fit, who's more superior to their physical anatomy. I said, well, Pop, I want to go to the Olympics. Have they ever had a black swimmer represent America? And he looked at me and said, no, son, there's never been a black swimmer. I said, well, I'm going to be the first black swimmer to represent America. And when I said this with conviction. I said this with pride, that I will be the first black to represent the United States. Time went on, maybe 2 years went by. And by that time, I'm building. I done left the bathtub. I'm swimming in the Harlem River. I'm swimming in the Hudson River. I'm swimming everywhere I can swim. And then one day, my father looked at me and he said, son, it's time we have a talk. What's up, Pop? He said, that dream that you have, that ambition to go to the Olympic Games as a swimmer, as the first black swimmer, is never going to happen. What do you mean it's never going to happen, Pop? He said, well, son, you know, a swimmer, from what I understand, have to swim 3 to 4 times a day. Where would you train? He said, you can't go to the Harlem River. You lose somebody every summer. He said, you can't go to the ocean. It's too rough. You can't go to Colonial Pool over there where you guys go because everybody's trying to cool off. Where would you swim? Just as he said that, I said, well, I can join a club. He said, oh, yeah, you think you can join a club? It'll never happen. Why, Pop? We can't afford it? No, son, I can afford it. But merely because of the color of your skin, they won't let you in the club. I said, but Papa, I'm the baddest. What do you mean they wouldn't let me in because of the color of my skin? And then he said to me, he said, son, you remember when you and your buddies used to go through the mountains and go all up through the white project and go to the white neighborhood where their swimming pool was? He said, what happened when you and your boys got inside, y'all jumped in the water? What happened? And it wasn't but seconds go through my mind before I realized that he was reminding me that parents, and my father like that tell you, he'd never been in the pool. But he know what happened. He said, what happened? And as soon as we got in the pool, all the white parents would jump up. Betty, Bobby, Ricky, Bully, hurry up, get out the water. Now it blows me away that they was calling their kids out the water. But at that time, we was thinking, you get out the water, it's more party for us. But the thing that blew me away was, while they was calling their kids out the water like something was going to roll off us and get on them, all the parents that was up there on the deck, they're putting suntan lotion all up and down their thighs and legs and arms to look like me. So now I'm really confused. One minute you don't want to be me, the next minute you've gotten to be me. So when he made me think of that and realized that just merely because of the color of my skin, I wasn't going to be able to fulfill my dream. That's a terrible thing to put on any young kid. And then I remember one day my father had some guys come through. My father used to have the poker game. Everybody's dad had a little hustle. So he had the poker game on Saturday nights and the crap game going. And he had some guys come through there one day. And these guys was like my father's friend. He introduced me and my brothers to him and fine, we happy to meet you, old timers, get out the way, let us do our thing. And then I went to the YMCA a year or so later, and I look up, and you know how when the lights go out in the theater and you're a little kid, you in there prankster. You trying to play and have some fun. But while I'm playing, I'm scanning the screen, and I see one of my father's friends on the screen. I'm telling my man, stop playing around, man. Don't play no more. I said, that's my father's friend up there. He looked at me, that ain't your father's friend. No, man, that's my father's friend. Stop playing. And the guy that was my father's friend was a superstar. But to me, he just one of my father's friends. I didn't know who he was. But this guy was the first guy that crossed the color line in baseball, Jackie Robinson. And they was doing the Jackie Robinson story. And at that time, guys, there wasn't anyone playing Jackie Robinson. Jackie Robinson played his own character. So he looked just like he looked when he came in the shop. I looked at him and said, wow, man, look at my father's friend. Let me be still and let me pay attention. I realized that he had gone to UCLA, graduated top half of his class. I realized that he was a 4-letter sportsman in college. I realized that he went into the United States Army, served gallantly, came out, won him some kind of star, medal or something. I realized that he crossed the color line into baseball, the first black to make American League or United States baseball. But greater than those things, I realized that merely because of the same problem I had, he was ridiculed, misused, and abused. Now, Branch Rickey had a lot of vision. He said, we can make the game better and we can give parity. But the pain that Jackie Robinson had to endure merely by crossing the line to show the world what capabilities blacks had in professional baseball, Mr. Branch Rickey couldn't shoulder that for Jackie Robinson. Jackie Robinson had to shoulder it himself. I peeped it real early in my life that merely because he was a black man, guys in his team didn't like him, would split down the line. 50% didn't even want him on the team. So then you sit back and you say, not only the guys on his team, he was played for New York City. They used to call them the Brooklyn Bums. Well, all the people up in the stands that was there to watch baseball, a large percentage of them didn't like him merely because of the color of his skin, to the point where he'd play on the field, they'd throw a black cat out there to image himself. He'd go through the South to play baseball. He was ridiculed before he even got to the South because they telling him on the bus, say, Jackie, when we go, you're going to have to find somebody to stay with because you can't stay in the hotel. Imagine an individual that had so much on his shoulder could have said, oh, the hell with this, I'm gone. But Jackie Robinson had true grit. He had the ultimate commitment in his mind, in his soul, in his heart. Not only did he have the ultimate commitment to say, I'm going to break the color line, but he stored everything that he had to go through. By the time he got through with baseball, he was still fighting the stereotypes that we had about black people, trying to set the record straight. He had a total commitment. I was blessed by God to meet Jackie Robinson. And then I went to a church one day with my dad called Abyssinia Baptist Church. I walked into this church, and the ministers in there was Adam Clayton Powell's church, Adam Clayton Powell Sr. And I remember one day the father came out that day to preach the sermon, and he came up to the pulpit and he told everyone, he said, listen, I'm not feeling well, and I'm going to step back and I'm going to let my son preach today. My son. Well, where's his son, Daddy? Oh, there's his son over there. No, Daddy, that can't be his son. I say, that's a white man over there. His daddy looked like you. No, son, that's his son. I'm sitting there with my mouth open. How could that be? He came from him. And my father said, well, son, he's not passing. And I'm sitting there for a second talking about passing. Passing what? That's what's running through my brain. What is he talking about passing? What are you talking about passing, Daddy? What is he passing? Well, he's not passing as a white man. What do you mean he's not passing as a white man? I said, you mean to tell me, Pop, that we got black people that's ashamed of who they are? They're ashamed of their ethnicity to the point that they want to be somebody else? He said to me, he said, well, son, it's not necessarily they would change and go over the other side because they want to be somebody else. He said, although some individuals get over there and get a little overzealous, they forget where they came from. He said, but 99.9% of them don't go that way because they're ashamed of who they are. They merely go that way because they want a better standard of life. Now, if you think about individuals that get on a boat and come from Cuba or risk their lives coming across the water, or coming from Haiti or any island trying to get to the United States, don't ever let anybody tell you they're coming because they don't like their country or they don't like their government. What they don't like is the standard of life that they have there. They want to see the good life, the good times that you have. And any man, woman, or child should want a better life for themselves because it gives an opportunity to their kids to have a better life down the line as well. So I'm sitting there and I'm looking at this and I say, what I liked about Adam Clayton Powell, as he always said at the end of everything, he'll leave you that message to tell you, keep the faith. Why did he come up with that? Probably because he knew with so many blacks or people of color that was going through hell and wanted to just throw their hands up and give up. But he would leave them with that message, keep the faith. I took that and put that in my little basket. I'm rolling on. I hear on the radio about this guy named Robin Hood coming on the TV one day. Sure enough, everybody want to break to see who this guy Robin Hood is. And I learned from an instant that this guy Robin Hood, every kid, I don't care who you were, what color you were, if you was depressed or being depressed, Robin Hood was your man. Because Robin Hood, first of all, got your attention when he got on TV because he wore a funny hat, long feathers sticking down the hat, wore some kind of funny jacket, and then he had some tights on. Looked like my mama's stockings. But what I liked about Robin Hood is that he was his own man. And Robin Hood looked at the world and had it like a pea, and he split the pea in half. And he realized when he split the pea in half that it was two laws. There was man's law and there was God's law. He chose to follow God's law. He knew that man was going to be against what he was trying to do, because he was concerned about those that had not opposed to those that had. Well, those that had wasn't happy about him, and they decided they would try and strike him down. But once again, Robin Hood didn't have a halfway commitment. Robin Hood had a total commitment, 1,000% committed to his cause, to give equality to every man, woman, and child. So yeah, he had to run through the forest. Sheriff of Nottingham was looking for him every day. But he didn't back down. He didn't give up. I respect him. I love him. I put him in the same context that I put the guy named John Brown. When John Brown came and you sit back and you say, why is it that you never hear about Robin Hood in old tales? Why is it that you never hear about John Brown when you turn history? Because these guys was the radical white guys. These guys that said, man, it's not about color, it's about right versus wrong. They stood fast. They're heroes in my house. So then I had to look at life for what it really was, because in Harlem, we didn't have no problems because we had every ethnic group running through Harlem, understanding one another, getting along with one another. So I thought. And then one day it looked like the white folks decided we'd have this meeting, and the meeting we decided we're going to get the hell up out of here. Why, I found out later that a lot of them left because they had fear for the fact that I'm working with my domesticated workers, and now they're living next door to me. We're going to vacate. We leaving Harlem. Well, one day we got up, it looked like they all started packing the bags up, packing up the suitcase, loaded up the stagecoach, and they moved on. Now, I didn't have a problem with them moving on, But what the problem I did have was the mere fact that when I sat back and looked at what happened when they left, they had saturated Harlem with a thing called heron, mud, dirt, smack. And I sit back and I think about back in that day and think about how many junkies it was in the Harlem that took away from good, decent families. Families that might not have had those jobs where they was making grand theft money, but they had some kind of job. They had some kind of thing that they could hold on to if it wasn't nothing but a family unit. When heroin fell upon them, it was like a test program. And I began to run around and want to ask them, why are you shooting these drugs? Why are you shooting these drugs? And I got into it so strong because I wasn't partially committed to finding out why. I was totally committed. And I was with him every day, and my pop got to the point where he got wind and I was running with these junkies, and he said to him, he said to me, son, we need to talk. What's up, Pop? I understand you run around with these junkies. If I find that you're running with them again, he said, son, I brought you in this world and I'll take you away from this world. I do not, let me make it understand, I do not want you running around with these dope fiends. So did I quit? Did I listen to my father? I wanted to. But I was compelled to find out, why are you shooting smack? Why? And you see your sister was fine, super fine. I wanted her to slow down so I can catch her. But look at her now. Look at your father. Man, check your mother out. Look at you. So I was compelled to find out. And I remember one day I was up on the roof with these junkies, and they cooking up their goods, and they asked them, said, man, why you do this? And one junkie came to me, an old junkie. He said to me, he said, you know, John, you've been asking this question for a while. You really want to know? I said, that's why I'm here. He said, well, sit down. I'm going to tell you. He said, you know, one day I was married, and I had a beautiful wife. He said, I had 3 beautiful kids. He said, man, everything was fine. I had a job. The job wasn't paying no money. I had my kids coming to the world. I needed a better job. I went and I started looking. I gave up the job I had. I went to look for a new job. No opening. Look some more. No opening. Look back there. We're not hiring. And then one day he went in, like he was a little hot this particular day. He said he went in and they told him, said, well, man, don't get upset. We don't have a job for you because you're not qualified. What do you mean I'm not qualified? Well, what I suggest to you, sir, is that you go back to school. Well, I can't go back to high school. So what school? Go back to college? Cool, I'll go back to college. And they put the word out that we need to go to school. Now, when we went to try and get into the colleges was not available to blacks or people of color. They made it very, very difficult for you to get in. But we got some that got in, and we had some that got degrees. And when they came out and they said, I'm qualified now, let me go back to those jobs and apply one more time. And they went back there, and they told them, say, man, we still can't hire you. Why can't you hire me now? You told me to go to school. Oh, man, you did go to school. We can't pay you what you're worth now. You're overqualified. Now homeboy is home with his wife, and his wife wants him to be the man of the house, be my man, be the father of your kids, be the breadwinner. You can't go home and tell your wife there ain't no jobs out there, so every day you fake it out. All right, baby, I'm going to get this job. I'm going to look for it. You leave the house, but you know you ain't going looking for no job because it ain't no job. Now I hear the coup de grace start to come. Hear your little daughter come in and say, Daddy, you know, you promised me that you was going to give me a new dress for my birthday. See, because all you ladies out there that's wearing jeans and pants and stuff today, back in the day when I was coming through, every little girl wore a dress. It might have been the same dress every day, but their mama would stay up half the night to wash it and iron it and make sure it was ready the next morning for her to wear. Every little girl wanted a new dress. Daddy, you going to get me that dress for my birthday? Yeah, baby girl, I'm going to get you that dress. I'll never let you down, sugar. And he leaves her and he goes down the hall and he puts his hand in his pocket and he got nothing in his pocket but holes. Wow, that's something heavy to swallow. How the hell am I going to get my daughter that dress? But before he can digest that, the next day his son comes home and says, Dad, I need to talk to you. I just got word from my PE teacher, told me if I don't get some tennis shoes, some shorts, and a t-shirt, I'm going to fail PE. Now he's got it on his mind that I'm infringing upon my kids' education now. Dad, I need it. Are you going to be able to get them Converse for me? Yes, son, I'm going to get them Converse for you. He digs in his pocket the other side. He reaches in, he got bigger holes in his pocket. Now his self-esteem is starting to dwindle. And here is the real coup de grace. Now his wife comes to him the next day and says, hey, baby, we've been married for 15 years. Our anniversary is this weekend. Where we going to go? What we going to do? We don't have anything in our pockets. We can't even buy a woman a rose. What kind of man are you? So now I go to the guy in the mirror. I do not like that guy in the mirror. None whatsoever. Every time I brush my teeth, I can't even figure out who he is no more because I'm ashamed of looking at him. Because I ain't no man. I can't be the breadwinner. I'm not the father of my kids. I do not like him. And then somebody take these drugs out of nowhere and drop on him and say, man, try this, you can forget who you are. Anybody here seen the picture, Lady Sings the Blues? Those individuals that Lady Sing the Blues, if you remember when they was in the South, Billie Holiday was on the bus and she was riding through and she saw the KKK out there having their big hurrah with their big burning cross. And she started to freak out and they was trying to suppress her and push her down. Well, they suppressed her and pushed her down and they got through that ride. But her mind didn't get through the ride. And somebody went to her and told her, say, Billie, take this, it'll help you forget. Billie Holiday became a junkie. But I don't want you to think that it was just black junkies or junkies of color. They had white junkies too. But they had white professional junkies. They had a job from 9 to 5 every day. And how I knew it was white junkies? Because it used to be 100 plus degrees. They used to have a jacket on and they had a long sleeve shirt on. I used to tell my boys, I said, man, I bet you $1 to a donut, homeboy is a junkie. Nah, he ain't no junkie. Let's go over to him. Hey, man, we got a little bet going on. Do me a favor, roll up your sleeves. We don't want to lean on you. We're in no trouble. Just roll up your sleeves. Let's show them something. Say, does that look like tracks to you? Give my money. See, so there was work on both sides of the street. Only difference is one could afford his habit, the other one couldn't. So I looked at that in terms of where I had to go. Well, I had to go even further to the point where I started breaking into freight trains like Robin Hood because those individual junkies that was taking place in Harlem, that disillusioned the family. It was no more family attitude. There was no more fridge full of food. You sit back and say, if there's no food in your house, it's not like you guys can get out and go to Carl's Jr. or go to McDonald's or go to Wendy's and go get you some fast food. Wasn't no fast food. You didn't eat that night, you didn't eat, period. So I started thinking about those that didn't have no food, even more those that didn't have no clothes, and even greater than that, those that didn't have no heart. Something had to be done. So I had to reach back to Robin Hood. And I remember when we were in front of the Yankee Stadium, they had these freight trains. Somebody had to go get in them freight trains. Why? Because I felt like those individuals deserved the same opportunities in life that my mother and father gave me. They didn't ask to be dope fiends. It was impressed upon them. That athletic deal that I had, they talk about I was a great runner and I was a great swimmer. Yeah, I was all of that. But my life wasn't geared about being a great superstar basketball player, a great superstar track man. What I wanted to be was a great human being. Now, how can I be a great human being and raise up like an icon, as they try and call me? I had to be the best that I could be in the sport because track and field for me, I figured out, was a springboard. The better I got in track and field, the more I could voice my opinion about how this society is. I was one that was young, was opportunist, was able to capitalize on what God showed me, the talents that I had, and I was able to get out the ghetto. But I think about those individuals that had no chance. I think about those individuals that were poisoned in the school because when they turn the history book and they look and they look and they look and they can't find themselves in there anywhere. To me, that was like being in the corporate boardroom. If I'm not in the history books and I'm not in the corporate boardroom, I'm not in existence in a lot of people's minds. And then I heard Dave talk about the sacrifice that we asked some guys to make. We asked them to make a sacrifice, and as I said, they were all your age. They was at the crossroads right now of their life. Here's a question I'll put to you guys. You trained all your life to go to the Olympic Games. And here I come before you and tell you, so, oh, wait a second. Let's consider this. Why don't we consider giving up our 15 minutes in the sun? Let's not go to the Olympic Games. But I want to hear what your thoughts are. And I hear guys say, man, I promised my church I was going to go to the Olympics. I promised my mom and dad I was going to go to the Olympics. I owe it to myself to go to the Olympics. They trained me to get that carrot. And you asked me to give it up? I said, well, that's your quest. Here's my quest. I think that the society is kind of broke. And I think that we can fix society and open their minds and have them be more creative, have them be more challenging to deal with the issues that we had before so all people can live a better, fruitful life. I say, and what I'm asking you to do right now is not going to affect you in your life 1 second, but it will affect the life of your kids and your kids' kids. Are you willing to sacrifice your 15 minutes to make it a better world? Oh, no, man, I ain't willing. I said, well, listen, are you willing to get on this hypothetical train with me and let's go down the road and have some discussion about it? Oh, well, we can do that. We can talk about it. Well, we got on this train and train rolling. As we rolling having this debate, everybody outside singing outside the train, God bless America. Bring home the gold. Kick China's butt. Make sure you beat up Russia. Hold back Cuba. Get us the gold count. We still rolling. And then they come up with a conclusion that, hey, man, I think I can be unified with you in terms of saying I'm willing to attempt to do an Olympic boycott. Is that a consensus we're willing to attempt? Let's stop the train. Now we have a consensus that we will sit down and put the word out that we're going to make this attempt to do this boycott. Let's put the banners on the train, all on the side of the train. 1968 Olympic boycott potential for blacks and anyone that is sympathetic to their cause. Come join the movement. When it came time, we started the train up again, and all those people that was out there singing, God bless America, bring home the gold, bring this back, bring that back, it was gone. They didn't like the fact that we talking about we ain't going to serve America, we ain't going to go to the Olympics. They left. But when they left, they had missiles take their place. Fire bombs start shooting at the train's on fire. Total chaos. Smoke, fire everywhere. But we rode on through this train for 43 years. And now people come back and they say, man, they're taking a picture of you. I should be in that picture. Hey, man, I see they built some statues down here in San Jose State, 25 feet tall. I should have a rock at the base of the statue. My name should be on that rock. Why? Well, I was there. You were there. And, you know, I do remember you being there. I said, but let me tell you something, man. I love you today more than yesterday and less than tomorrow. But I will never, ever be able to let you get in the picture, nor will I ever let you get a rock with your name on the base. Why not? We were there. Oh, you were there? Come up front. Let me see. Do me a favor. Open up your shirt and let me see some burns on your chest. Bend over. Let me see burns on your neck. Or roll up your sleeves. Let me see it on your arms or your hands. Say, Tommy Smith, come up here. Peter Norman, come up here. You want to see some burns? Pull up your pants. Let them see your burns. You want to see my burns? Let me show you my burns. I said, and the reason I'm asking for your burns is because if you don't have no burns on your body, you bailed. You didn't ever have a 1,000% commitment to what we were standing for. You dove when it got hot. All of you out here in this audience right now is going to have the crossroads of your life. It's like this. Say if the KKK was out there burning up houses, they hide behind sheets like cowards and come in and burn up people's houses while they're in the middle of the sleep at night. Just being mean and spiteful and devilish and hateful. The kick is, that was your crossroad. Did you allow it to happen? Just step up and did not say anything in the press or go anywhere to your church or speak out in the street about what took place? But no, they sat back and they said Malcolm X was a bad guy because Malcolm X had a shotgun or AK-47 on his shoulder in his house to say, by any means necessary. He wasn't walking down the street like the Black Panthers did. He was in his house. He said, I will protect my family by any means necessary. They put it up, oh, Malcolm X said he'll kill white people by any means necessary. He's a bad guy. They was quick to jump on that. Anybody in this audience right now, regardless of what your background is, you will do the same thing if you love your family. But they flipped it. But how can they flip it on him and we get excited about what they said about him, but we don't get excited about guys that's cowards running around with sheets on their face? Guys that's cowards that go burn up a house with a woman and kids in their sleep. And we sit back and allow these things to happen. It's about you stepping up to the plate. And you making the decisions. It's not an easy decision when everybody's going against you downhill and you trying to go uphill. And they pointing at you and telling you crazy and you out your mind and you're going to lose this or you might lose your life. My life is worthless. I live for my kids. I live for you. And you're going to have to live for yours. If you're going to anticipate making this a better world for all people. Only time we come together, if you sit back and look at it, is when we got a natural disaster come in. When you got snow up to the damn speaker up there, then we trying to figure out how we can love one another to get that damn snow out the driveway. Or if we got a major fire that's running through the state of Texas, and Texans don't care about what color you are, if you can help me get that barrel of water to put that fire out. Or somebody walking down the street and they dropping down for a heart attack and they can't get oxygen. They think they say, oh, wait a minute, let me check their color of their lips out before they give me life. It don't work like that, guys. We don't need you just because a storm is here and for you not to realize we have a storm in life that we face in every day. Prejudice, bias, and racism is the worst disease that we can got. And they talk about cancer is the killer. What causes cancer? Stress. You know what causes stress? The way that you guys allow this life to be. Now, I'm not saying you guys, I'm talking about those that was here before you. You have a means to change society right now. Those individuals that's out there doing that Occupy around the world, they're the same as you. A lot of them might be your parents, your older brother and sister. They're out there because they know that when you get out of college, if this society don't turn around economically, you ain't going to have a job as well. But you will be getting a letter stating you owe those student loans and you need to pay them now. Your kids going to be sitting back and say, Mom, I thought Grandma had a house. Yeah, they did have one, son, and we almost made it to term, but they put a foreclosure act on us. We had to leave. I went around the world and I saw Eiffel Towers where they had gold roofs and marble walls and gold chandeliers and all the royalty was living there. And then right next to them, 5 yards away, I saw shanties and sugar shacks where they was picking up any piece of paper or cardboard to keep the wind or keep the sun out. America, if you guys don't wake up, and I know y'all think it's not possible, but America is headed that way. Say we're going to take this Pac-Man and let him eat out the middle class all the way. And if you think about middle class, that 99% is the middle class and the underclass. Those are the individuals that built this nation. Those individuals out there fighting against you, that 1%, those are the ones that's reaping the rewards. And while we sitting here debating about what's happening in this country, whether we're going to make it economically, they steady putting billions of dollars in the bank every day. Wake up, guys. This is your count. Understand, it's time for you guys to receive the baton and figure out what you're going to do with it. Thank you for my time, and God bless you guys. I appreciate this opportunity. Hey guys, look here. Let me just say this. I have to say this every time I go somewhere. So I got a couple of people here can vouch for this. Every time I go somewhere, you know, people want to applaud. Remember when I said come in the door? I'm just like you. I'm nobody special. I'm just like you. I ain't no icon. I ain't no superstar. I'm going to eat, sleep, and die just like you. But if you feel like you want to applaud, I don't want applause. But I always tell them, if you feel like you must applaud, go in your pocket or your purse and throw Jingle up here.
We have some time for some questions. So hopefully our speakers will get a chance to have some water. There's 2 mics set up. So if you could please line up there. There's stairs are steep, so please use caution. And in the interest of time, we only have about 10 minutes, so we welcome brief questions but not commentaries. So we'll start with gentleman in the hat.
Hi. First of all, I just want to say thank you guys so much for an amazing presentation. I missed Mos Def and Blackstar on Saturday, and this is a bigger duo than Mos and Quali. My question, I guess, is if you guys can just talk about the connections between what was happening all over the world in '68 and what you see happening right now with Occupy and Egypt and everything.
I'm going to start because John is chewing.
We're eating on the run.
Yeah. I mean, 1968, one of the things that was so remarkable about that year was that it was a year of both hope and horror. I mean, there was a lot that happened in '68 that was amazing and that inspired people around the world, like May in France in 1968 had the largest general strike that the world had ever seen. Czechoslovakia had people standing up to the tanks that were coming in to crush a student rebellion. You had the growth of the Black Panther Party and the Black freedom struggle in the United States. You had a lot that was happening that made people feel like, wow, another world really is possible. And in the middle of that, you also had the absolute horrors that we talked about, like the mass execution of the Mexican students and workers, the execution of Dr. King. And so you had both of these things side by side. And I think when you look at today, you have a similar dynamic. I mean, you have these events that are truly inspiring, like what happened in Tunisia, Egypt, Wisconsin, the Occupy movement. This is very inspiring, but we should also remember that it comes at a cost. I mean, think about Scott Olson, who was in a coma, the veteran out there in Oakland who was hit in the head with a tear gas canister. Or think about the incredibly brave people in Syria who've been marching, who've been killed and shot down, young children as well for standing up to the dictator Assad over there. So there is a price that's paid when you have these kinds of global fires, which are happening. But if there's a difference between '68 and now, I think the biggest difference is you have a global economic crisis right now that you didn't have in 1968. And that means that there are a lot of people starting to realize that we are in this boat together. And if we don't get together, we're going to die apart. And you see that now in a way that I think is very, very pungent for people. And that's why I really do believe we've got, just to be honest about it, when we go to the Occupy sites, you know, there are people from all backgrounds there, but there are a lot of white people there too. And it's young white people who are like, wow, throw fist up, you know, and doing all that because they see it as a universal symbol of resistance, and they are, in fact, resisting. And so that point of connection, I think, is very profound, and it says about how things have changed since 1968.
Right on. There we go.
Oh.
Okay.
We'll go on to the next question then.
I'm usually accustomed to speaking, but I actually am a little bit awestruck at the fact that I'm standing here before John Carlos. Just a small moment. I mean, when I'm asked for it, not for my passport, but what is a, who are my favorite athletes? I put Smith y Carlos, right? Smith and Carlos. I wish my father were here today. We watched the race back then, and my father cried on that occasion when the event took place, and cried even more when he stood up on the podium. So for me, this is an extraordinary moment to see you here. The whole context of which Dave just pointed out. It was an extraordinary period, an extraordinary moment. And in a sense, you've added a degree of poignancy to this, to point out about the other black athletes who you went to and said these things to them. And I think about Lee Evans, I think about Beeman, I think about a whole series of people. I think also about the African athletes who were there for the first time as well, and who in a sense, signaled their arrival but it was such an amazing period, you know, for me. just one question. I mean, Dave's pointed out already. And this is an athletic question rather than a political question, which other people can talk about and so on. But it really was a catalyst moment for many people, what you did. And I think it's hard for younger people, I think, even today to realize just how profound it was. But I didn't realize that when you were turning left or right, I forget what it was, that was what it was about. It was about you telling Tommy Smith, where are you? Was that it? Yeah?
Well, relative to the race, I don't like to talk about the race, but I'll tell you. When I went to Mexico City, I went there, I broke the world record. I broke the world record 30 days prior to me running that race at that time. I went to Tommy at the quarter semi, and I said to Tommy, look, man, the boycott has been called off. I'm still disenchanted about the boycott didn't take place. I want to make it. What's your take? He said, well, I'm with you. When he said that, the race was his. Because Tommy's philosophy about races was a lot different than my philosophy. My race was being in the stands, partying with the people, drink a little wine, hanging out a little bit, eat some chicken, play with the kids. When I got done, go back in the stands. But Tommy's attitude was a lot different. I'm the man in track and field. So gold medals meant a lot to him. I felt at that time that if I was to go to that victory stand and put my fists up to the sky by myself, it would be nowhere near as effective if we went up there in a unified sense. God himself picked Peter Norman up and put Peter Norman up there to show his character, his moral character. The race was irrelevant. Other than the fact that I knew I had to get one of the top 3 places. That's why I broke it down. I didn't anticipate taking third. I was going to take second. I paid so much attention to Tommy, I got a little pissed off because Tommy threw his hands up like I was a poop butt, I just put his butt, But towards the end of the race, the last 10 meters, if you go to, what's that, YouTube? Go to YouTube and you download the movie, you'll see that off the turn, that first one, and I was gone, I came off, I had about 6-7 meters on everybody. I pulled back on the race. You can see me pull back. And that's when I turned around and started telling Tommy, if you want to stop bullshitting me, come on. Now, at the same time, I'm still striding down the track, looking around. And then we got 10 minutes from the tape, it dawned on me. Peter Norman. And you see me turn from my left all the way around to my right, and there Peter was. Now, I was a little disenchanted when we went to the finish line, but when I looked up at the clock, I saw that Peter Norman had run 20 flat. I was more excited about Peter Norman than I was about John Collins and Tommy Smith. Why? Because no white kid or no white person in the history of track and field had ever run 20 flat. I know that I had run 20 flat in lane 1. That's impossible as itself. So for him to run 20 flat, I was happy for him. But at the same time, I looked over and saw that John Collins ran 20 flat too. And I did a lot of playing in that race. So I don't have no misgivings about Tommy getting his gold, Mr. Norman getting his silver, and John Collins getting what he wanted on the victory stand. That was my main purpose of going to the Olympic Games. Other than that, I'd have stayed home. The reason I went is because someone from America, because America was the best nation in the world in track and field at that time. Any guy could have got up there and qualified in my spot. But I don't think they would have represented John Collins on that victory stand the way I felt he needed to be represented. So that's why it was imperative for me to go, not for the race.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Next question.
I just wanted to know, did you expect that outcome from the audience? Do you expect the audience to completely denounce what you guys did? Yeah, the actual audience in the stadium.
I had 2 live audiences. Okay? When I was 7 years old, God lit my bedroom up. I tell people this story. I tell myself, well, check with my mom and my brothers, because this is a hard thing. But when I was a kid, 7, 8 years old, God lit up my bedroom wall. I think it was a Saturday morning, lit my bedroom wall up. And I see myself in this movie. I'm in a forum. I don't know what the forum was. I didn't know what the podium was. I told my daddy I was on a box. Everybody in the stadium was yippee-ki-yay, and they was happy. It's almost like that train ride I told you about. And by the time it hit my little brain, they must be applauding about you because there's nobody out here in this box but you. And I went to raise my hand and wave. Just as I went to do that, happy times and sunshine turned to chaos and stormy weather. They started booing. They started throwing things. They started spitting, started telling me where to go. 15 years later, that's exactly what happened in Mexico City. That was the exact response that they gave in Mexico City. I remember my father looking at me at the dinner table that night and he said, son, what's the matter? I said, Daddy, I was in a movie. And so everybody was happy about something I did, and then they got mad at me and started throwing things at me. He asked me this because he could see through the course of the day, I was still shook up about what I saw. But just 15 years later, I'm on the victory stand, and I'm saying, oh, this is what that demonstration was about. This is what that vision was about. So, yeah, I had a prelude as to what was going to happen with them. If I step back right now and say, do I have any regrets whatsoever? I have one tiny regret, and that's the fact that I didn't protect my wife and my kids better. But then I remember I just turned 23 years old. I thought I had it going on, but, I'm 66 now. I sit back, I think I should have maybe thought it through a little more about how to safeguard my wife and my kids. And I say that because I lost my wife in the midst of it. My kids had to go through changes in school as a result of what I did. But to be honest, when all the dust settled, I wouldn't add nothing or take nothing away. It'd have to happen again for 1,000 times. My wife would have to die 1,000 deaths because I would do it every day. Okay? All right, sure.
Next question. Thank you to both for speaking and to the organizers. This has been a really lovely presentation.
Say that again.
I said,
Speak up.
thank you to both for speaking and to the organizers as well. This has been a really lovely presentation. I have a question. I'm wondering if you two are going to be passing through Occupy Toronto at all on your visit, and if you're here until Saturday, there's going to be a demo and rally because, there normally are, but earlier this week the city mayor tried to evict Occupy Toronto, and the Occupy Toronto won a temporary injunction to stay. So Saturday there's a hell no, we won't go rally. So I'm wondering if you two.
Unfortunately, we'd be on a plane early in the morning. I'm trying to occupy my bedroom right now. But unfortunately, we've been on the road so long, and just about everywhere we go, I think we might have maybe missed 2 spots, but normally everywhere we go, we try and make it there. I will be back here in February. If Occupy Toronto is still going on, I'll probably come down there and stay and spend some time with them and have some words for them as well. But when you go back, you tell them, say, hey, you got to occupy everyone's mind to become one. Because I told them when I went and spoke in New York, it seemed like it's kind of splintered. And they're trying to say right now that every Occupy group have a different agenda. And I told them we have to have one agenda straight across the board, and we got to learn the game rules a little better so we can break the game rule where they have excuses to come in and manhandle us or push us out. Okay.
We have about 3 minutes left, so if the remaining questions could be brief.
Okay. I want to thank you both for being here, and as somebody on the left and a sports fan, I want to thank Dave for giving me something to read, because that's rare in sports writing, right? What I want to ask is, I've been involved in the BDS movement against Israeli apartheid, and one of the things that BDS activists are doing is drawing parallels to South African apartheid in that movement and connecting with activists from then. And I'm wondering what you folks think about the idea of a boycott movement against Israeli sports teams in international competitions.
So I'll say something about this because I am, just so people know, formally I'm what's known as a Jewish anti-Zionist, or jazz, as we call ourselves, jazz band. And I do believe that one of the main reasons why there was a boycott movement on the issue of South Africa in the Olympics, and why there was an organization called SANROC, South Africa Non-Racialized Olympic Committee, was because of the idea of saying, well, wait a minute, if you don't have everybody on the field together, trying to figure out who's the fastest, how can you actually say that represents your land? It's just a very fundamental idea. And in Israel, it's like a tale of two sports communities right now in terms of like who has the same way Dr. Carlos talked about wanting to swim and not having access to a pool. It's a very similar dynamic, but in some ways it's worse because if you're, say, Israeli Arab or Palestinian and you do happen to be the fastest swimmer, you don't have the same access to be able to get the pipeline to it. And I think that's an issue that is in violation of the Olympic Charter. And I think it's something that needs to be taken very seriously by everybody, no matter their political leanings who are involved in the issue of international sport.
Thank you. Second last question.
Hi. I just want to say I'm kind of ashamed. I didn't know about you guys before taking a course called Cultural Persistence of the Americas here at York. But you talk about human rights. You talk about you mentioned Cuba like 3 times. You talk about racism, and I just want to ask you, what do you think about the fact that this past Pan American Games we got the 2nd place, and yet the fact that many sport players from like this tiny small island still have to go through the sea, or that a homeless guy have a better diet than an athlete in Cuba, or the fact that they gotta drive a bicycle every single day, and I'm talking about the food, the diet of a Cuban athlete. If you compare it to the diet of a Canadian, or
Well, you know, I have family in Cuba right now.
That's good, me too.
And what I want you to know is this. Like you said, they have to ride a bike to go to practice and so forth. But, you know, we have a basketball hoop and a big pole and a big backboard. As you know, in Cuba, this is their basket over there. But the bottom line is, irregardless of how much money you have or how much money you doesn't have, it doesn't really depend upon whether you're going to be the superstar athlete. When you sit back and you look at Cuba based on what he's saying, yeah, they had an embargo against Cuba for the last 48 years. But if you sit back and you think about a small island like Cuba, every time we go to the boxing ring, Cuba is taking them medals home, them gold medals home. When you sat back in track and field back in the 70s, Cuba was the one that was dominating the field. So it's not about the material goods that you have, it's about the commitment that you have to represent.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to go to the last question. There's going to be some time at the end afterwards to speak with the speakers, but I have to go to the last question.
Dr. Carlos, I'm going to be quick. We met on Monday at U of T, and we talked about your experience in Trinidad. I'm a former athlete myself, and now I'm in education. I brought my 14-year-old son here to hear you today because I thought it was really important for the young people to hear. That's Isaiah. I think it's really important for these young people to hear your message and get something from you. So I was just going to ask you to share something with us, a message that you'd like to pass on to the young people.
Well, the greatest message that I could pass on and tell them is like this, man. I ask kids, and they should ask their friends. And the question is, did you go to school or did you go through school? And I ask that question all the time because I ask them another question just to cement that one in their mind. I say to you, young man, if you don't eat, what happens to you? If you stop eating, what happens? Starve to what? Starve to death, right? So that's absolutely true. If you don't eat food, you die. What happens to you if food is like education and you don't get no education? What happens to you? Now what happened? You said you won't live. That's right, you will not live. You will wish to God you was dead if you don't get any education. Understand? Remember what I said? If you don't eat food, you die. No doubt about it. But if you don't get no education, that's food for life. If you don't get no education, you're going to wish you was dead for the next 50, 60, 70 years because it's difficult to figure out how you're going to feed yourself every day. It's difficult for you to figure out where you're going to lay your head every night. It's difficult for you to figure out how you're going to get them bugs from under your arms when it's time to wash your butt. So education is the key, the foundation to this life that we have to live. Push every young man, every young girl to go to school and make them serious about getting their education. Because remember, guys, y'all going to get like me. 60 years is just around the corner on y'all. And your salvation is going to be these young people that's in the audience right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would now like to introduce Dave Mayer, captain of the York track team, to say a few words.
Good captain. Coach. Let's coach. All right. All right. Hey, guys, when I come back next time, I'll talk some track stories.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the Coalition of Funders, Faculty of Health, York Federation of Students, York University Black Alliance, and our other generous supporters, Sport and Recreation, School of Kinesiology and Health Science, Stonga Bethune Colleges, and the Kinesiology and Health Students Organization, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank both Dr. John Carlos and Dave Zirin for sharing their insights and for taking the time to come visit us here at York University. York University students are known for being a politicized community, and so it is fitting to have such inspirational leaders come and share their stories with us. On a personal note, as a fellow track and field athlete, I support Dr. John Carlos's choice to stand up for his beliefs and feel that being suspended from the U.S. team is unwarranted. In light of the win-at-all-cost mentality that can be pervasive in sport, I admire his courage in risking his athletic success for a greater good. I would now like to invite both Dave Zirin and Dr. John Carlos up to the podium to give them a token of our appreciation.
Step up. Thank you. Right.
I'd now like to invite Nicole Hansen, president of the York University Black Students Alliance, and artist Mark Stoddard to make a special presentation to Dr. Carlos.
Thank you, Professor Yuka. On behalf of the York United Black Students Alliance, I would like to thank you, Mr. Carlos, for your story and how you've chosen to live it and tell it. Thank you. It is with your voice, alongside of Mr. Zirin's, we can continue to actively resist and fight structures of oppression that are both overt and covert. As well, I would like to thank the Faculty of Kinesiology, the Faculty of Health, the YFS, All Balls Don't Bounce, and supporting your faculties and students in attendance with being a part of this auspicious occasion. At this time, I'd like to do a special presentation and call Mark Stoddard to the front, please. Okay. Mark Stoddard's work has been exhibited at several galleries and private events around Toronto in recent years. His portfolio of paintings has received widespread acclaim, which eventually led to his talents being showcased on Bravo's TV series, Star Portraits. Also, it has been featured in this year's 211 York United Black Students Alliance Black Pages. His commitment and popular slogan of educate, empower, and unite can be seen in throughout his artwork and thought-provoking projects such as the Live It, Wear It campaign, which looks to engage the community in supporting each other, putting your best foot forward, and to live in your purpose. Today, Mark is looking towards the future, eyeing a next medium that motivates and expands that imagination. As a visual communicator, Mark feels compelled to do more than just convey information. It has become his personal mission to create art that inspires people to act. Mark Stoddard.
Yeah, Mark.
Good evening. I'll make it kind of sweet, but to the point. Listen to Dr. Carlos again, and all I can say, brother, very, very powerful. One thing we have to take in consideration, we all have a service to do. One thing is, again, as the fist, as you can see that I'm wearing, we all can do the same thing collectively. As individuals, our index fingers, we all can do our own individual things, but collectively we work as one unit, we can make that powerful impact in society. And that's one thing we have to take in consideration. We all have to reflect within ourselves to do the bigger thing. This is one of the pieces, being an artist for myself is being a true storyteller. And I can't imagine how when you went through, but telling your story. As an artist, I feel I want to do the same thing and speak out. So today I want to showcase one of my pieces for you.
Hey, check this out. And you the ball, baby. Thanks, man. Wow. Oh, look at this. You know, this is the type of situation when a person gives you a piece of art like this, now you got to go buy a house to put it in. You know? You got to buy the right house because this is a special piece. Thanks again, man. I appreciate this.
No problem.